Okay, let's talk about something that feels like a corporate earthquake. Your company is splitting in two. Now, while all the headlines are screaming about stock prices and shareholder value, there's this other crisis, a human crisis, unfolding just below the surface. And you know what? That's where the real risk is. So today, we're going to dissect the playbook for surviving a corporate split. So you get the news, and instantly, one question just drowns out everything else. What about me? What about my team? What about the people who actually make this place run? You see, that single question, that's the tremor that can bring the whole structure down if you don't handle it right.
And here's the core of the problem. A divestiture, it's not like ripping off a Band-Aid. It is a long, slow, agonizing period of uncertainty. And that uncertainty, it breeds fear. And fear is what sends your best people running straight into the arms of your competitors, who, believe me, are more than happy to take their calls.
So to get through this storm, you need a playbook. So today, we're breaking down a 5-part strategy. First, we'll define the core dilemma. Then, we'll get into how to pinpoint the key players you absolutely can't afford to lose. After that, we're going to open up the toolkit of retention strategies. We'll cover how to communicate the plan. And finally, we'll look at the real bottom-line impact of getting this right. All right, let's start with the dilemma itself. During a massive corporate change like this, your most valuable asset, it's not your patents, it's not your real estate, it's your people. And all of a sudden, they are seriously at risk. I mean, think about it. When your team is constantly looking over their shoulder, the entire business can grind to a halt. Projects stall out, productivity just plummets. And worse, the people who hold your most valuable customer relationships, they could walk right out the door, taking that business with them. And you can bet your competitors are circling like sharks, just waiting to pick off your top talent. So, how do you defend your kingdom in all this chaos? Well, the very first move in this high-stakes chess match is identifying your most valuable pieces on the board. Look, you can't protect everyone, so you have to be almost ruthless in prioritizing your key players. So how do you get that kind of surgical precision? Well, it starts with 2 really critical steps. First, you've got to define and segment. Basically, you map out your entire workforce, figuring out who drives the most value. And then, you use that map to determine who's eligible for your retention efforts. This is not about playing favorites. It is all about protecting the core of your business. So who are these key players, really? Well, it's a broader group than you might think. Yes, of course, it's your high performers, but it's also the person with that deep institutional knowledge, the specialist with a super rare skill set, or the account manager who's basically best friends with your biggest client. It could even be the person who just has the experience to get the deal done. And this simple matrix right here, it's an incredibly powerful tool for making those tough calls. It forces you to weigh 2 things: how much you need someone and how likely they are to leave. And that top quadrant, where both the business risk and the retention risk are high, yeah, that's your 5-alarm fire. That's where you focus your efforts first. Okay, so once you know who you need to keep, the next chapter of the playbook is all about the how. And this requires a toolkit that's got a mix of both financial and, just as important, non-financial strategies. You should really think of it as a 1-2 punch. The financial awards, the money, that's the knockout blow that stops people from leaving right now. But the non-financial efforts, that's the conditioning that builds long-term loyalty. It makes them want to stay for the long haul. The best strategies, they always use both. And this is why you just can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to bonuses. You've got to tailor the incentive to the specific goal. A retention bonus, that's for your long-term star performer. A stay bonus, that's for a short-term specialist you need for a specific project. And a completion bonus, that's for the core team that's got to get the deal across the finish line. Each one serves a totally different strategic purpose. But look, money can only buy you so much time. These non-financial tools, this is what wins hearts and minds. Giving someone a special assignment, a new career path, or even just a seat at the table with senior leadership, these things send a really powerful message. They say, we see you, we value you, and we're investing in your future. And in a time of total chaos, that's probably the most reassuring message you can possibly send. But here's the thing. A great toolkit is totally useless if it just stays in the box. To actually put these tools to work, you need a crystal clear plan for communication and for governance. Think of it like a cascade. Leadership, they set the direction from the top. HR provides all the consistent messaging and support. But the most powerful, most effective communication, that happens at the ground level, in those one-on-one conversations between managers and their teams. That's where it all becomes real. And, to steer the ship through the storm, you need a steady hand on the wheel. That's the role of the governance committee. This cross-functional team keeps an eye on the budget, they track attrition, and they make sure the plan is actually working. They're the ones who provide the accountability that keeps this whole effort on course. So after all these steps, why does this matter so much? Well, it all comes down to successfully navigating one of the most difficult transformations a business can ever face. Let me give you a real-world example. A medical device company decided to sell off a unit that made up 15% of its entire workforce. I mean, just imagine the shockwaves. A move that big, without a plan, could have easily triggered a mass exodus and crippled the company. But here's the kicker. It didn't, because they put a strategic retention plan in place, combining both financial and non-financial tools. Voluntary turnover didn't spike, not really at all. They kept their key people, they maintained stability, and they successfully closed the deal. The playbook worked. And this quote from our source material really just nails it. In normal times, sure, retention is important, but during a massive, transformative event like this, it becomes an absolute strategic imperative. It's truly the difference between a successful transition and a cautionary tale. Look, in today's business world, it's not a matter of if a major disruption will hit your company, but when. And the only question that's left is this: will you have a playbook ready for your most valuable asset when it does?